5 years ago, that woman in the cream suit had nothing. No visa, no ticket, no future in the country she had worked 4 years to reach. Because the woman now on her knees in that airport had taken it from her. Not a stranger. Her stepmother. The woman her father chose after her mother died. The woman who smiled at every family dinner. Who called Amara daughter in public. Who took Amara's visa application from the kitchen table one morning and handed it to her own daughter instead. And told Amara it had been rejected. Drop a comment right now and tell us where in the world you are watching from. And if you are not yet subscribed to Turning Point Tales, hit that subscribe button now. Because what Amara built in 5 years without that visa brought those two women to their knees in a public airport. And she still did not look back. Amara's mother died when Amara was 11. Her father Joseph grieved for 2 years. Then he met Linda. Linda was organized, practical. She ran a tight house. Joseph told himself this was what his daughter needed. Stability, structure, a woman who could manage things. What he did not see, or chose not to see, was how Linda managed things. She had a daughter of her own. Nicole was 13 when Linda married Joseph. Pretty, entitled, used to being the priority. From the first week, Linda made the house's hierarchy clear. Nicole's meals were served first. Nicole's school fees were paid without discussion. Nicole's future was the conversation at every dinner. Amara's future was the thing nobody discussed. She learned to be quiet about what she needed. She learned to ask for less. She learned that the less she asked for, the less she would be denied. By 18, she had a plan that required nobody's help. She would apply for a work visa. She had spent 2 years researching the process. She had saved money from a part-time job she had kept secret from Linda, because anything Amara had that Linda knew about had a way of becoming Nicole's. She completed the application herself, every form, every document, every supporting letter. She put the completed application on the kitchen table the night before it needed to be submitted. She went to bed. In the morning, it was gone. Linda told her the application had been rejected. Said the visa office had called while Amara was at work, said there was nothing to be done, said these things happen. Amara stood in the kitchen and looked at her stepmother. Something in Linda's expression was too still, the particular stillness of someone who has prepared an answer and is delivering it carefully. Amara said nothing. She went to her room, called the visa office herself. The line rang for a long time. When someone answered, she gave her name. Her application reference number, the one she had written on the back of her hand the night before she submitted. The officer checked. Said, "This application was approved 3 weeks ago. The visa was collected last Tuesday." Amara sat on the edge of her bed. Said, "By who?" The officer said, "The collection was made in person, with ID." Amara said nothing for a long time. Then she said, "Thank you." She put the phone down. She sat very still. She already knew. She did not confront Linda that night. She went to the kitchen, made dinner, sat at the table, listened to Linda talk about Nicole's plans. Nicole was leaving in 3 weeks, to the same country, on a visa that had Amara's name on the application and Nicole's name on the collection. Amara ate her dinner, said goodnight, went to her room, packed a bag. She called Aunt Patricia at 11 that night, her mother's sister, the one person in the world who had loved her mother, and by extension had never fully trusted Linda. Patricia answered on the second ring. Amara said 3 words. She took it. Patricia said, "Come now." Amara picked up her bag, walked past the kitchen, past the living room where Joseph was watching television. She stopped, looked at her father. He looked at her bag. He said nothing. She walked out. She stayed with Aunt Patricia for 3 months. Patricia was not wealthy, but she had a spare room and the particular anger of a woman watching her dead sister's child navigate something her sister was not alive to prevent. She helped Amara file a report, not to the police, to the visa authority. It took 4 months. The investigation confirmed what Amara already knew. The application had been collected using a forged letter claiming Amara had authorized someone to collect on her behalf. Nicole had been in possession of a visa that did not belong to her. The visa was revoked. Nicole was removed from the country 11 months after she arrived. She came back to the family house with nothing. Linda appealed the decision twice, both times rejected. Joseph sat in the kitchen through all of it and said very little. He had said very little for years. Amara reapplied, this time with Patricia's help, this time with documentation of what had happened, this time with a legal letter from an attorney Patricia had paid for herself. The second application took 8 months. Amara spent those 8 months working, 2 jobs, saving, learning everything she could about the field she planned to enter when she arrived. She was not going to arrive unprepared. The visa came through on a Friday afternoon. She held it for a long time before she said anything. Then she called Patricia, said, "I got it." Patricia made the same sound Ruth made in the story before this one, half laugh, half cry. The specific sound of someone who held on long enough to hear the right news. She arrived on a Tuesday morning. Nobody met her at the airport. Nobody was waiting. She took a bus to the address she had written down, a hostel for 3 weeks while she found her feet. She found her feet in 6 weeks. By month 3, she had a permanent place. By month 6, she had a promotion at the company she had joined at the bottom of. By year 2, she was leading a team. She called Patricia every Sunday. She sent money home every month. Not to Joseph's house, to Patricia directly. By year 4, she had started something of her own, a small consultancy, built on the specific knowledge that comes from doing the work yourself before you ever manage anyone else doing it. By year 5, she was in the airport, coming back for the first time. Not because she missed home, because Patricia was unwell, and Amara did not let important things sit unattended. She did not tell anyone she was coming. Not Joseph, not Linda, not Nicole. Only Patricia knew. But airports are public places, and Linda had a cousin who worked at arrivals. By the time Amara walked through the doors into the arrivals hall, Linda and Nicole were already there. She saw them before they reached her. Linda in clothing that had seen better days. The consultancy Joseph had relied on had collapsed 2 years after Nicole returned. The house was under pressure. Things had not gone well. Nicole was thinner. The particular thinness of someone who spent 11 months in comfort that was not hers and has spent 4 years since trying to find a version of that comfort that actually belongs to them. They moved toward Amara through the crowd. Linda reached for her arm. Amara kept walking. Linda said her name. Amara kept walking. Nicole dropped to her knees on the airport floor. Travelers stopped, stared. A security officer moved closer. Amara stopped. She did not turn immediately. She stood completely still, suitcase in hand, cream suit, 5 years of everything she had built standing quietly in her posture. Then she turned. Linda looked at her stepdaughter. The words she had rehearsed for however long she had been rehearsing them fell apart completely. What came out instead was the truth. Raw, unplanned. The specific truth of someone who has been carrying something so heavy for so long that the moment they see the person they took it from, they cannot hold it anymore. Linda said, "I am so sorry." She said it again, and again. She said, "I took everything from you. I told myself Nicole deserved it more. I told myself you would find another way. I told myself so many things so I could live with what I did." She said, "I ruined your father's family. I ruined my own daughter. I destroyed everything I touched, trying to build something that was never mine to build." She was not performing this. It was not clean or composed. She was a woman falling apart in the middle of an airport in front of strangers, and she did not care anymore. She said, "I am asking you, one chance. That is all. One chance to begin making it right." Amara looked at her stepmother. She said nothing yet. Then Nicole spoke. Nicole was still on the floor. She looked up at Amara. Her expression was not the expression of someone performing regret. It was the expression of someone who has been living with something specific for 5 years, and it has hollowed them out completely. She said, "I knew." She said it clearly, looking directly at Amara. "I knew the visa was yours. I knew what my mother had done. I knew when I collected it. I knew when I packed my bag. I knew every single day I was there." She said, "I told myself you would be fine, that you were stronger than me, that you would find another way." She said, "And you did. You always do. That is the part that breaks me. Not that you suffered, but that you built something extraordinary out of what I let them do to you. And I have spent 5 years trying to find one piece of what you have, and I cannot," she said, "because it was never about the visa." She said, "You had something I never had, something my mother never gave me." She looked at Linda, then back at Amara. "You were raised to stand up. I was raised to take, and I did not know the difference until it was too late." A door at the far end of the arrivals hall opened. A black man walked through, older than Amara remembered, slower, the particular slowness of a man who has been carrying something heavy for a very long time, and it shows in how he moves now. Joseph. He had heard from Linda's cousin too. He had driven to the airport alone. He stopped when he saw the three of them. He looked at his daughter. Amara looked at her father, the man who had watched her pick up her bag, who had looked at her bag and said nothing, who had sat in kitchens through investigations and appeals and the collapse of everything Linda had built and said very little. He walked toward her slowly. He stopped 2 feet away. He looked at her for a long time. Then he said, "I did not lose you because of the visa." He let that sit. "I lost you because I stayed silent." He said, "I watched Linda take things from you from the first week she was in our house. Your mother's picture moved to the back room. Your seat at the table made smaller. Your future made smaller." He said, "I told myself I was keeping the peace. I told myself you were strong enough. I told myself you would be fine." He said, "I said the same things Linda said, and I had even less right to say them, because I was your father. And she was not your stepmother. She was the woman I chose, and I chose wrong, and you paid for it." His voice was not breaking. It was simply honest, the specific honesty of a man who has had 5 years to arrive at the truth and has finally arrived. He said, "I am sorry, Amara. Not for the visa, for the years before the visa, for every time I should have stood between you and what was coming, and did not." The arrivals hall was quiet around them. Amara looked at all three of them, her father, her stepmother, her stepsister, 3 people in an airport who had each taken something from her in their own way. She did not raise her voice. She did not cry. She spoke the way she had learned to speak, clearly, without rushing, saying exactly what she meant and nothing more. She said, "When I was standing in that bedroom holding a phone after the visa office told me my application was approved, I had 2 choices." She said, "I could spend the next 5 years trying to take back what was taken from me, or I could spend them building something that could not be taken." She said, "You took my visa. You did not take my work ethic. You did not take my intelligence. You did not take the years my mother spent making sure I knew who I was." She said, "You delayed me. You did not stop me. There is a difference, and I need you to understand that difference, not for you, for me, because I am not carrying what you did for 1 more year." She looked at Linda. She said, "I forgive you, not because what you did was acceptable, because I refuse to let it live in me anymore." She looked at Nicole. "I forgive you, for the same reason." She looked at her father. For the longest moment, she said, "You I am still working on." She said it without anger, just honestly. Joseph nodded, like a man who expected nothing more and is grateful even for that. An older black woman appeared at the edge of the crowd, Patricia. She had parked and come in. She did not know what she was walking into. She stood at the edge of what was happening and watched. When Amara finished speaking, Patricia stood still for a moment. Then she walked forward. She stood beside Amara. She looked at her niece, at the woman she had given a spare room to, who had called her every Sunday, who had sent money home every month, who had built something extraordinary in a country that did not know her name and made it know her name. Patricia said, Your mother would be proud of the woman you have become. The arrivals hall. The travelers, the 3 people who had hurt Amara, the security officer, the noise. All of it fell away, because those words, your mother would be proud, were the only words Amara had been waiting 5 years to hear. Not from Linda, not from Joseph, not from a court or a visa office. From someone who had known her mother, who remembered her, who could say with authority that the woman who raised Amara would recognize what her daughter had become. Amara's composure, which had held through the investigation and the second application, and 5 years in a country alone, and Linda breaking down in an airport, and Nicole on the floor, and her father's honest apology, finally let go. She turned toward Patricia, and she cried. Not loudly, not dramatically, just deeply. The specific tears of someone releasing 5 years of carrying something they were never supposed to carry alone. Patricia held her. The way she had held her on the night Amara called and said 3 words. She took it. After a few minutes, Amara straightened, wiped her face, picked up her suitcase. Patricia kept her hand on Amara's back as they walked toward the exit. At the doors, Amara stopped. She did not turn around. She simply said, to no one and everyone, I am not coming back to that house. But I am not going anywhere either. When you are ready to begin, properly, you know where Patricia is. Then she walked through the doors. Patricia followed. The doors closed behind them. Joseph stood in the arrivals hall. He looked at Linda. He looked at her for a long time. Then he reached into his pocket, removed his wedding ring, placed it in Linda's hand. He said, You stole her visa. He paused. But I let you steal my daughter. He turned, walked toward the exit, a different exit from the one Amara had used. Linda stood in the arrivals hall holding the ring. Nicole beside her. Around them travelers who had watched all of it slowly beginning to move again. The world continuing. The way it does, even after everything falls. Amara and Patricia drove out of the airport in complete silence for the first few minutes. Then Patricia said, How do you feel? Amara looked out the window. She said, Like I finished something. Patricia said, You did. Amara watched the airport disappear in the side mirror. She thought about a kitchen table, a visa application, one night, a phone call, a spare room, 2 jobs, 8 months, a hostel, a bus, 5 years. She thought about her mother, who she could not remember perfectly anymore. The details had softened with time, but the feeling was still there, the specific warmth of being someone's daughter, of being known completely, of being the most important thing in a room to someone who meant it. She thought, Patricia kept that feeling alive for me. She turned to Patricia, said, Thank you. Just that. Patricia kept her eyes on the road, said, Drive safe. I love you. Amara smiled. Faced forward. Some people take from you and call it survival. Some people take from you and call it love. Some people take from you and spend 5 years watching you build what they thought they were preventing you from building. Amara lost a visa. She did not lose her direction. She did not lose her work. She did not lose the voice of a woman who told her she was her mother's daughter and meant every word. They delayed her. They did not stop her. And she drove away from that airport, not looking back. Not because she was cold, but because everything worth looking at was already in the car with her. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video and subscribe to Turning Point Tales. We will see you in the next one.